it took me all over the place. They get weird. So these hotspots can get a lot weirder than just UFOs and giants. They can get into some pretty bizarre stuff. And I used to stay away from this stuff because I tried to be more of a nuts and bolts like UFO and monster guy. Like Bigfoot is real. It's an animal in the woods, you know? And now after years and years and years, my mind is open to anything. And when you take into consideration simulation theory, the holographic universe, the quantum field, it really feels like anything is possible. So my mind is wide open to these stories. So
yeah, when it comes to the supernatural, you like to get freaky.
Yeah.
You know it, sir.
Yeah. If you had a Tinder profile, it'd be like, I like to get freaky in the supernatural. Get weird.
So my story starts with the UFO event, and it leads into a hotspot. So last summer, I was home in a farmhouse that my mom lives in that's been in the family for 200 years. It is an awesome house. It is just has a bunch of supernatural stuff going on in it, from ghosts and weird monster sightings and oddball noises, and all sorts of crazy stuff happens in my hometown, and specifically the house, this farmhouse. Last summer, looking out the window upstairs with my wife, we saw a light go up over a section of land, and I'll explain what the section of land is in a second. And this light went up towards the sky. It was really white, and just like, in the distance, not too close to us. Nothing was weird at first, but all of a sudden it just like jumped like miles and miles to the right instantly in the horizon, and then jumped back, and then jumped to the left, and jumped to the right, and then suddenly changed into like all these eccentric colors. So it wasn't just, it was a big white light, then suddenly it was like a Christmas tree light, just blinking on and off, on and off, on and off. And the same thing, it was whipping back and forth. And then it became a white light again and shot up into space. This was a great moment because my wife does not, always kid me when I brought up UFO stories, and I had to come grab her when this was happening because I saw it first. And of course she didn't believe me, but I love it because she saw it with me and it was proof. And she was blown away too. Of course, everyone we told gave us like the side-eye look, like, okay, kids, all right, you're home on vacation.
So before
drinking a lot.
Before this event, she just kind of put up with your shit, but now now she's on board.
Yeah, she's less embarrassed when I corner people at cocktail parties and tell them about UFOs.
You guys really bonded over this. This was a good event.
It was everything we needed for our marriage. So, where did we see this? It was I was in Rhode Island on the coast, and where I was looking was over a certain part of Massachusetts. This part of Massachusetts is something I drove through for 4 years to go to college. I went to Stonehill College in Easton, Massachusetts, and Easton is part of this triangle. It's called the Bridgewater Triangle. It's a hot spot. It was coined by famous cryptozoologist Loring Coleman back, I think, in the 70s, because there's just a crap load going on. It's a bunch of parts of it, which I'll explain in a second, that make up the Bridgewater Triangle, but basically it's this part of eastern Massachusetts, kind of close to the shoreline. It's about 200 kilometers, 200 miles, 200 square miles big. It encompasses towns like Rehoboth, Freetown, Bridgewater, Middleborough, Berkeley, Raynham, Norton, Easton, where I went to college, and Lakeville, Seekonk, and Taunton. All these places are really close to me. And
is it in like a triangle shape, like it's actually this area?
Yeah, the shape of it, where there seems like the most activity is happening, is a distinct triangle that was I think drawn by Loring Coleman. Very interesting. So, this wine is good, by the way. Coppola is on point. I'm all in on Coppola.
I mean, not
by the way,
all of his movies are good, but I mean, his wine is amazing.
Yeah. So one thing I thought that was really awesome about the Bridgewater Triangle, that it might actually be the place of the first documented UFO report in the entire world. In 1760 was this date. It was directly over the Bridgewater Triangle. The sighting was just a UFO of some sort, but I thought that was really compelling. Bridgewater Triangle is crazy AF. One of the craziest parts about it is this swamp. It's an old-ass swamp called the Hockomock Swamp. Hockomock Swamp. I probably butchered that.
Hockomock.
But this place has been called the Devil's Swamp by the English people, and by the Wampanoag Native Americans gave the swamp a name. What that actually means, Hockomock, is place where spirits dwell. Creepy. And this place is in more like western part of the triangle, and it's just like a swampy ass area. New England, it's like just wet and like ponds and lots of moss, and it's just a very creepy place. And like everything you've seen there, from ghosts to UFOs to weird ass shit, which I'm going to get to in a second. And here's a great story. Even Bigfoot's been seen in this thing, so I'm going to read you a quick little story.
Yeah, he has.
Joe DeAndre thinks a swamp may be the habitat of a creature yet to be identified. In 1978, DeAndre, then 24, was standing on the shore of a clay banks, a pond in Bridgewater near the swamp. His back was to the water. I was standing there, and for some reason I had to turn around, DeAndre said. It was a chill or something inside me. And I turned around, and there, off to the right, maybe 200 yards away, there it was. Well, I don't know what it was. It was a creature that was all brown and hairy, like a big apish and man thing. It was making its way for the woods, but I didn't stick around to watch where it was going. I ran for the street. So this is just one of many stories. This guy
I've
devoted
seen
his
this
life.
man before.
Dude, that dude's just like a lot of testosterone out in the woods.
Did he
just
ask you out?
I did. I was like, I'm not interested. I'm not going into the woods, okay?
Yeah, don't follow that guy. But so this part has every single sighting in it. What I want to get to in the Bridgewater Triangle, which was, and there's even an explanation for that swamp and like why it's so creepy. There was a big war there between the natives and the English, and lots of people died and horrible things happened. So they think a vortex opened up and all this stuff.
That seems to be a pretty common attribute to these, hotspot places, I guess, is a lot of death, a lot of like emotional. I don't know. It's that whole. It gives me the feeling of like why cults or whatever would do like a ritual sacrifice to kind of like it's that outpouring of life force or the ending of it. I don't know what it is, but it seems like it's pretty common in these areas.
Well, it also feeds those energetic lines. So specifically a telluric line, which is an electrical current.
Right.
Like a DC current. So that's on the surface. So if you create an emotional situation like a death, which is very strong, then you own it and you can direct it in the way you want to. So
that's some Empire of the Wheel stuff right there.
It is part of Empire of the Wheel.
Ooh. Well, I don't know what that energy's doing because it does more than just ghosts and UFOs. Like, we're about to get weird. It's about to get real weird. So, one of the famous things in the Bridgewater Triangle, one of the famous things that happens in a lot of hot spots, but I want to start with the Bridgewater Triangle, is seeing dinosaurs. Mini dinosaurs, pterodactyls, weird shit. So in Bridgewater, there's a famous case that a police officer reported about seeing a thunderbird, which is a cryptozoology term for basically a pterodactyl. What the fuck, though? Like, how could it... So, like, people see these things, like, a bunch of times in this triangle, like, over parking lots, like, fighting. Like, what the fuck's going on? Like, okay, say those people really saw a pterodactyl. Like, what is that? Like, how is that? It's obviously not living there. So what is this energy doing? Is it, like, time? Are they, like, seeing something back in time? Is timelines merging for a second? Like, what the hell is happening? It's so confusing.
It's like...
It's so bizarre. Like, what go on?
Well, I was just going to say, it's like if we're talking portals and vortexes, it's like this opening in space-time, that maybe it does kind of open up a temporary portal that, it's either another dimension or it's a point, it goes back to a point in time where dinosaurs still existed or whatever, and they're just coming through. I don't know.
And maybe they're seeing us too, like, whoa, what the hell is that down there? They might be just as
that looks good to eat.
Yeah,
yeah, right. Yeah, maybe some of those missing 411 people end up as Tyrannosaurus meals.
Oh man, imagine that ending if that really happened to you.
That's so crazy, though. I mean, you think about that. Like, I mean, that's another thing too. Is like these places like shift timelines. So it's just like that dinosaur is jumping through another timeline into another one, and you're witnessing it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, it doesn't get any dorky or awesome for me. So I found this famous case of a police officer and what happened to him. It was on a site called themothman.fandom.com because obviously a giant bird-like creature would, some people might interpret that as a Mothman, though I don't think this is. So I'm going to read this quick. This is the actual sighting written by this guy on written by the guy who wrote this article. At 2 a.m. on a late summer's night in 1971, Norton, Massachusetts Police Sergeant Thomas Downey was driving along Winter Street in Mansfield towards his home in Easton, which is where I went to school, college. As he approached a place known intriguingly as Bird Hill in Easton at the edge of Hockomock Swamp, Downey was suddenly confronted by a huge winged creature over 6 feet tall with a wingspan of 8 to 12 feet. As Sergeant Downey drew to a stop at the intersection, the bird flew straight up, flapped its massive wings, and disappeared over the dark trees into the swamp. Downey reported the sighting to the Easton police as soon as he reached home. A patrol car searched the area, but the huge bird was not sighted again. For weeks, his fellow officers called him the Birdman.
Dude, that guy can never live that down.
Yeah. I love that this guy has this. There's a lot of these, people who have these like profound sightings or experiences like this, and they're just shut down and ridiculed. And it's just
Hey, look, it's the
butt of every
Birdman.
joke.
You want a beer? Oh man,
Dude, that's
poor
very
guy.
New England, though. Like, bust your friend's balls, they come up with a name for him. It's kind of funny. I'm sure they did it with love. I'm sure it wasn't that bad for Downey. But what do you say? So they teased him with the name, but Downey stuck to his story. He was sincere and credible in interviews. He even had interviews about it, and said he was struck by how the creature almost seemed to float upward, only flapping to get liftoff. Well, that's fucking weird. So it didn't even really fly. It kind of had to fly. I don't even know what that means.
Huh.
Dude, that's just an awesome story. So what did this do to me? Like, I was going to just do Bridgewater Triangle, hit with another story. This is one of, like, a bunch of people seeing a gray alien in a parking lot. I don't know what it is with parking lots in Bridgewater Triangle. There's all this stuff, like, right, this satanic activity. I don't know. I don't get it. And then, like, Fall River, Mass., which is really close to me, there's a bunch of weird shit going on in this forest with satanic cults and stuff. But what happened is I was like, okay, dinosaurs, like, what's happening here? What else can I find that's even weirder than that? So brings me back to the Four Corners, where we all are kind of close to. And one thing I found a bunch of was, have you guys ever heard this term before, a river dinosaur? It's from the illegal lizard trade. I mean, I'm setting you up. Obviously, you never heard that before. In the illegal lizard trade world, there's a term called river dinosaurs. And what that means is it's like a mythical creature that I guess they've come across before, where it's basically a mini Allosaurus. Sometimes it has feathers, runs on two legs, small little arms, but 3 to 5 feet tall, seen in the Southwest a lot over the years. And it's called a river monster in the illegal lizard trade. So I was like, all right, let me see what's going on with river monsters. So I started looking it up, and the first thing I came across was this amazing photo. There's a photo of a cowboy, like all sepia-toned from the 1800s, holding a river monster, holding what looks like a mini T-Rex or a mini Allosaurus in its hand. I mean, you could Photoshop the shit out of it, and if you look at the shadow on the creature, it looks out of place with the guy. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where I have a basic understanding of Photoshop, and I probably could trick that myself. But still, let's just go with it's real. And there's another picture of, like, a really small creature in the distance from a long time ago. So that's like a lot of, like, anytime you come across an article about a mini T-Rex, this is the picture that gets posted.
Oh, there's, like, classic photos of cowboys holding up a big pterodactyl as well. Have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah,
it looks really cool, yeah. We'll put these in the on the website, but
I haven't even seen
sure.
this stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'll send them through.
So there's been some recent sightings in the Four Corners area, and I want to read a couple of them to you really quickly. So they're seeing miniature dinosaurs, which is just the best. All right,
what is with the dinosaurs? I mean, I've never heard so many people seen dinosaurs before until this podcast.
All right, here's one that happened in Cortez, Colorado, which is near the Four Corners-ish. Here's what the witness said. It was a Jurassic Park flashback. I mean, I couldn't believe it, says Shannon, and her last name I definitely cannot pronounce, and I'm not going to try. Shannon and her girlfriend were driving down this road the night of July 5th. She says a creature ran in front of the headlights. This is 2002. Sorry, I did not set this up well. July 5th, 2002. She says a creature ran in front of the headlights, a very big lizard, nearly vertical, running on its hind legs. We were, freaked out. Immediately, we thought it was some kind of dinosaur, a huge lizard, so we came home, she says. So they just went home, and they were very nonchalant about it. They didn't know what they were seeing. Was it an escaped animal? Some people theorized it was like an ostrich that escaped. Like, what if there's like a bizarre, mangy, fucking, like, wolf thing that has some weird disease running across? You don't know. But what's weird is that's not the only sighting. People repeatedly see this thing, and they see it in packs, too. I don't have a good sighting story of seeing them in packs. So imagine just coming to a lake, and they're usually seen by bodies of water, which is really weird. So they're always seen by a river or lake, and sometimes they're seen in packs. Fucking, who would have thought? Mini T-Rexes out there. All right, so here's a second story I want to read quick. This one's in Pueblo, Colorado, in 2001, which is not that long ago. Okay, why is it every single time I look up a story, I can't pronounce anybody's fucking name? It's like always like a name I cannot pronounce. This name is S-U-C-I-K. Like how would you say that without saying suck? S-U-C-I-K. Suka.
Sukik?
Sukik?
Sukik. Oh, we're going with Sukik. All right, so this happened in Sukik, something weird. in Cortez. It's a Cortez couple who are visiting Arizona. Okay, this is what they saw. Suddenly, they're driving in 2001 in the Yellow Jacket area of Colorado. It's a woman and her daughter. Sukik. It's a woman and her daughter. I have to cut this.
Did you just tell me to suck it?
Stop it, Josh. It's inappropriate.
I like this story because they have a lot of detail, and it's just bizarre. Like, what happens when you see something bizarre? Like, what do you do next? So this is what she said. Suddenly, this thing runs out. At first, they thought it was a young deer because of its size. The woman described it as having a long neck and skinny legs like a bird. However, it had no feathers, and its arms seemed to go out of its upright neck rather than its body. The woman estimated that the creature would measure about 5 feet if stretched from neck to tail. It looked like a cross between a bird